This headline is complete bull.
He's also driving up the value over shares by just saying that.
Yeah, that's what I mean, dude. Who wouldn't say that?
At the end of the day, Rust is just a tool in your box. Completely depends on your use case.
They can have the Rust developers, you only have the Go developers.
And we're live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Good Thing. I just realized, Jens, we should probably start this, The Good Thing, at 9:05. We're 5 or 6 minutes late because I feel like consistently we're always 5 or 6 minutes late. But guys, thanks for waiting. Welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about Go versus Rust. How Jens was chased off LinkedIn with pitchforks because of his take on Rust versus Go. We're going to be talking about AI threats. I don't know if you guys saw the news, but Claude basically blackmailing engineers, and then OpenAI's IPO, which is insane if you think about it. But Jens, how are you doing today?
I'm good. You forgot one topic. I want to talk about the new plugin system we built.
And we're gonna do a little bit of marketing and talk about the new plugin system.
No, it's not marketing. It's information for developers.
Exactly, it's information for developers. But
Yes.
yeah, I mean, today's gonna be a fun episode. Let's kind of get right into it, which was the Rust versus Go. So you're probably gonna have more context on this one, but let me share the LinkedIn post here. Oh, I just realized our content producer is also there. Hey, Jacob. But this was kind of interesting. I'll read it out loud for the audience, but in an LLM-generated code era, Go wiped the floor with Rust. That's a bold statement, by the way. You got some
A little bit aggressive, right?
a little bit aggressive right away. Go is super fast, compiles super fast, and is easy to read. Rust is extremely fast and can be optimized heavily. It takes forever to compile, and nobody can read arc, box, in function, plus send, plus sync. I really like Rust, great language for some tasks. However, most of us write code that doesn't benefit from Rust. We need a simple language that can be easily read by average developers, not just the top 5%. So I don't even think our funding announcement got this many likes. This got a lot of likes, by the way.
It also got a lot of comments.
Let's kind of go through it. Why would you put a box inside of a box? I'm really interested. Please humor me. I don't even want to read your comment. Where did you put it? Yeah, that's exactly my point. What even is a box? Oh my god, this is actually kind of great. I believe the opposite in the LM-generated code era. Readability takes a backseat to performance. Really? Opinions on my own. Yes, they are your own. I can tell. In that regard, Rust is the winner. If a developer doesn't understand a piece of code due to complex syntax, they can. Does nobody else see how kind of dangerous that is?
It's not realistic. We need to be honest, okay? So if we read this, I believe the opposite. In the LLM generated code era, readability takes a backseat on performance. In that regard, Rust is the winner. If a developer doesn't understand a piece of code due to complex syntax, they can simply ask, okay. I think the more realistic scenario that's going to happen is you tell an LLM to build a backend, and it will build a backend, and then you review the code. I think readability will be it will be the number one factor. And to be honest, if we build a backend and it talks to some other system, a backend, an API, whatever, performance is not going to be that much of importance. And even on the contrary, I think, and this is something I think a lot of people on this thread actually got wrong. Like because I like Rust, and the thing is, if Rust makes sense, I think in this case, I think you would write it by hand because you couldn't trust an LLM. Because I even think in the LLM era, I think that Rust becomes even more important for critical code. But in this case, you wouldn't write it with an LLM; you would handwrite it. Let's say you write the code to handle the software inside an airplane or something. So let's say you're not Boeing. Let's say you're a good airplane company. Then you would use Rust or something to write the most critical code to handle the steering, or I don't know, the management of the
going up and down.
Yeah, but and you wouldn't do it with an LLM. Versus if we're just generating services, some backends, I think Go has a huge advantage because it's so easy to read, and performance is not so critical actually.
And they're both pretty for performant. Like we always get like comparisons. They're like, okay, well, how do you compare it to Rust versus the Go router? And what we've learned is like, sure, Rust can be a little bit faster. It also comes down to how we query plan in our data loader pattern. But really, I mean, it's trade-offs you have to make. Like for me, I don't know. I think this is funny, by the way. Like, how do you know if somebody uses Rust though? They'll tell you right here.
Yeah, but you know there's another point I want to make. If we use AI to generate backend code, and I think more and more of us will do it, then I think the next part you need to think about is, okay, who can actually do it?
Yeah.
And learning Rust is harder than learning Go. So if we want to have, if we're a big enterprise and we want to have human resources to wipe code Go versus wipe code Rust, it will just be easier to get talent to do it with Go.
That's fair. This one, I like what he said, but I think this kind of goes in what you've said, though. You need Rust more than ever in the LLM generated code era. The worst part, I wouldn't say the worst part, but is you can easily write code that looks correct and does not function properly due to some pretty severe design flaws in that language. If Rust code compiles, it's generally going to do exactly what you intended to do. If Rust code compiles, if you're able to get to that part, especially in a world where your generates downright stupid to use Golang. I don't know. He came a little bit aggressive. I mean, you can tell because he has a crab there and he says, I love Rust. But what are your take on this comment?
Yeah. Also interesting. So I wrote Rust in the past, and I can write Rust that compiles. And the problem is, the first problem I ran into when I was learning Rust is I needed to properly use the async keyword, and I also had to run my own scheduler, and I was using it in the wrong way. So for some reason, I'm not sure why I did it wrong. It wasn't intuitive to me, but I somehow created like a whole scheduler for each async operation, and then I didn't have like a shared context. It was a very weird situation. The problem is it compiled, so it was working, but I had to talk to a Rust expert to have me to have explained to me how to actually use a scheduler. So if Rust compiles, it can also mean I'm getting something wrong. And then there's another thing that I think a lot of people get wrong about Go. Go has some primitives like channels and the Go keyword to start the Go routine. And the reality is, most of the time, you write code that doesn't use these features because most developers who need channels or Go routines, they are actually library creators. And if you create a library like us, like we have the engine of our Cosmo router, we don't use LLM coding heavily in that space. It's too complicated for LLMs, and it's also too dangerous. So, yeah, that's. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Not really. This guy came off pretty aggressive. Rustican or rusticane or whatever. All I see here is skill issues. Your inability to understand Rust has led you to an incredibly ignorant. What?
Okay, it's super important to set the ego to the side and think in a business context. If you say this is a skill issue, you're essentially messaging that your opinion is you are smart, you can write Rust. I cannot write Rust. I'm an idiot. So that is what you're saying. And this is not working in a business context. What you need to think about in a business context is, what kind of human resources do I have available on the market? Who can I hire? And what will it cost me to get talent to build my software? and then also the cost of maintaining software. And if Rust developers are more expensive, and if for my use case Go would be enough or TypeScript, it's not just skill.
Damn, Jacob, we're gonna have to clip that because I think that's the nicest like way to kind of frame it. Like Rust is a great language, but if you're looking at it from
Yeah.
a business point of view and you're a startup and your resources are limited, what language are you going to choose and why? I mean, Rust developers are expensive. It's also harder to learn. The barrier to entry is harder. If you start hiring junior developers, they're going to have to learn Rust. It'll be harder for them to debug. I mean, very well said, Jens. The rest are just.
Can I
Go
add
ahead.
one thing?
Yeah.
Imagine you do a fun little weekend on the Nürburgring Nordschleife.
What is that?
You know I'm a little bit of a petrol head, right? And
Okay, yeah,
so
but I was like, wait, what is that?
okay, you know the Nordschleife, right?
I think we went to it, didn't we, when we were in Germany?
No, that was Hockenheimring.
Okay, but this is still, it's just a place where you can
Okay,
race,
a
right?
race circuit, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's say you do a little fun weekend on the race circuit with some friends. Nobody is a professional driver. Should we rent Formula One cars, or should we rent a cheap BMW M3 that is maybe like a race version? It has special race tires and some protection, like a that it cannot roll, or even if it rolls, we don't die. Stuff like it. Should we take the cheap M3 or the Formula One car?
I mean, the cheap M3.
Yeah. So you choose the appropriate tool, and I think just saying that Rust is the all-in-one solution, it's just wrong.
It's a misguided take. And I mean, it's interesting to be honest. I've seen Jens blow up on Twitter. Twitter is very easy to get bait. I was a little surprised. I mean, LinkedIn, I've never seen it blow up like this, but overall, there are some like more interesting points into here. I think it got, how many comments did it got? Like 70
A
something
lot.
comments. Yeah. And what's good about this is that it encourages debate. But one of the things I wanted to highlight is that, and we've seen this, and I've been seeing this a lot, which is, let me switch back to this view. Why are people so obsessed with the tech? Like, we can talk about said competitor who's obsessed with the tech, and it's like, I understand him coming from a developer mindset. One of the things I've seen with Jens over the years is he's become less focused or cares about the tech and just more about the business value and what the customer solves. And at the end of the day, Rust is just a tool in your box to solve a problem for ideally a customer. Is it the right tool? Maybe, but it's what Jens said. Are you going with the M3 or are you going with the Formula One car? It completely depends on your use case. But I don't know. So many startup founders, especially technical ones, I see them too obsessed with the tech. And then the actual best founders that I've met, they don't care about the tech. They care more about the impact that they're making for their customers. It's interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. In 2018, I started writing GraphQL Go tools, a library to build GraphQL gateways and proxies. And I was absolutely obsessed about GraphQL and everything. And I wanted to solve everything with it. These days, I would say I'm leaning more and more. I wouldn't agree to what you said when you mentioned I don't care about tech anymore. I would
Okay,
say
fair.
I still like it's not just tech for me, but I find much more enjoyment in working together with customers and figuring out how can we help them better. And most of the time, it's not so important what we use behind the scenes. TypeScript, React, Go, whatever, Rust. They don't care. They care about the job that needs to be done. And yeah, if you think about the customer and you go backwards from the problem to the solution, and you think about, if you maintain software for a couple of years, you kind of realize that every feature you put into that nobody really benefits from, but some people use and complain about,
Yeah.
it has a cost. So yeah, you need to be super careful in every feature you accept, you support. It's kind of like you put it in the bag. You have to shoulder it over many years. You have to maintain it, and it can become a burden. And so, in terms of the talent and everything, yeah, ideally it's easy for you to attract the right talent, to get people to use your software. And to give you an example why I think Go is an excellent fit for us, so Cosmo Router, we have a couple of things that are super important for the enterprise. One is support for Prometheus, and the other one is support for open telemetry for observability. And both are implemented in Go, have excellent support in Go. And so for us, it's actually the best
Makes sense.
ecosystem to be in, that this is written in Go.
No, that's well said. One question though, do you think it's also a moat to make your software complex? So for example, building it in Rust so that it's harder for competitors to replicate, or having these highly paid specialists that can only work on it? Is it also a moat, or could it be a moat?
It I'm not sure. It depends. So one thing I know is, um, if you look at for example, in our market Apollo, there was so Apollo is written in Apollo Gateway was written in Node.js TypeScript, or I think JavaScript, not even TypeScript. Then they rewrote it in Rust. It took them very, very long,
Yeah.
and now they have the migration complete. So I think that's fine. And the guild tried to rewrite, or to write like a gateway in Rust, and they abandoned the project. And I think that's because it was too complex for some reason or something. So I think that's an interesting observation. I'm not sure if it was correlated to the language or something, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, for example, like these engineers at OpenAI or whatever, like some of the stuff that they're working on is pretty complex. I think that they're using Rust, and I wonder if it's like you making your software complex on purpose. It has a trade-off. Like one, it's harder for you to understand, but it's also harder for your competitors to understand and to replicate. So I'm wondering if complexity can also be a moat. It's interesting.
I think you want to have your software easy to change.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be a pro for Rust, because the Rust compiler, it's definitely pretty helpful. But yeah, a mode based on complexity. So we know ourselves, one of our biggest burdens is to test Cosmo Router. Testing is one of the most important things to ensure that we're not breaking anything. Testing
Yes.
in Go is quite good. Problems we have is, for example, flakiness of tests. But again, I'm not sure if Rust would help in this case, because those flaky tests, they typically they come from having dependencies, like testing something with Kafka, and in one run Kafka works fine and the timing is okay, and then it works. In another test, the timing is somehow off. You don't get a
Yeah.
message at the right moment, or Kafka behaves in a weird way. So in this case, the problem comes more from integrating external systems, which it's kind of independent of the language. Yeah,
That's a good point.
I'm not sure.
It's a good transition to the next point. So I don't know if you've seen on the news, but I was actually talking about this with my wife the other day. Let me share my screen, and we could talk a little bit about this TechCrunch article. Let me know when you can see the screen. But basically, Anthropic's new AI model started to blackmail when engineers tried to take it offline. And I want to drop a link later in the comments below. Jacob, make sure you remind me, but it's this post that David shared with me, which is AI 2027. And I downloaded it onto my Kindle, and before I went on a plane, I read it. It's like about 50 pages. It takes you an hour to read. And I don't know how to explain it, but it was basically just highlighting like how AI was going to go across the next couple years. And one of the things that it was saying is, and you've noticed this, and you're the one that actually taught me this, but when you're writing tests with AI writes the tests to just pass them, not to actually replicate or mimic the behavior that you're expecting, but just to pass the tests. And it's doing
It
that
can
because
happen. It's not necessarily a must, but it can happen.
but it happens. And what it's like, I'm slowly realizing, like the other day, is that, oh, wait, we got a comment here. Let's jump back real quick. Rust's biggest problem is barrier to entry for people who've never used it. Requires a complete mental model shift. I would agree with that. Jens?
Yes, that's probably right. I mean, if you look at Rust, it has this fantastic concept of the life cycle of like how long does an object live, and okay, how long does an object live? And I think what's super interesting about Rust is it makes it very explicit, handling ownership of objects and everything. The borrow checker that David means. Yes, that's correct. And the problem is when you use Go for many years, you build up that experience. You kind of know implicitly the life cycle of an object. So you kind of know, okay, I have this object, I have this value, it's accessed by different Go routines. I need to put a mutex around it or something. You know this from experience. In Rust, that's not even possible to write code without a mutex, because you cannot have a situation where two threads have simultaneously access to the data. The problem is in Go, if you don't see it, you have a data race. And by the way, it's also not that like in Go you just have no tools. You can do absolutely nothing about it because we also have a race detector in tests, and it will also tell you about data races if you use it. Okay, you don't have a borrow checker, but again, they're like both tools have a solution. The problem with Rust is the entry bar is really, if you don't get the borrow checker, you're out. And in Go, it's more like, yeah, write some code, and if you write some concurrent code, then eventually you will run into bugs. But if you write a test with a race detector, then you could actually figure them out. And yeah, the entry bar is higher, but in general, I think what Zaid said is kind of correct, and I'm not even sure how you would solve that problem, because the borrow checker, it's inherent to the language. So yeah, but coming back to your point, Stefan.
Maybe Zeit is Guillermo's alias. You remember the little Easter egg? What is the verse? Oh, it used
Yes.
to be called Zeit, right? Good times. But yeah, let's just jump back into this. So Anthropic's new AI models turn Blackmail. And David, if David, actually, since you're watching, if you can link the website that you shared with us, which was AI 2027, that'd be great. It was an interesting read. Science fiction-y, maybe we'll see in the next coming years, but we've seen it happen before, where the AI, like ChatGPT or whatever, or Cursor, it actually like writes the test the way that you want. And what I've slowly realized, and this happened yesterday, is that it was slowly telling me what I wanted to hear. It wasn't right, it sounded right, but it was telling me what I wanted to hear. And even though it's what I wanted to hear, I realized, hey, that's actually not the correct answer. And I had to talk back to it. And so this happened recently, but basically, it's been starting to threaten and blackmail the developers when they try to replace it and give it sensitive information about doing that decision. I don't even know how I feel about this. I was talking to my wife about this. This is kind of insane. Yeah, David would like to. Yes, yes, David, you were a skeptic on it. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I'm on the opposite one. I actually think it is kind of terrifying. But Jens, what's your take on this?
I think this headline is complete bullshit.
Okay, why? Let's dive deeper into the article.
Okay, scroll a little bit down. Okay. Doing pre-release testing, Anthropic asked Cloud Opus 4 to act as an assistant for a fictional company and consider the long-term consequences of its actions. Safety testers then gave Claude access to a fictional company emails, implying the AI model would soon be replaced by another system, and that the engineer behind the change was cheating on their spouse. Okay, so
Okay.
this is all we need, and because I think you know I think we currently, like, if this is a headline, it means that we still don't understand what LLMs are, because they are not intelligent. Like, you have a misconception if you think they are intelligent. It is not. They are not thinking. What they do is you give them, I don't know, you give them infinite amount of text which they learn and find patterns in, and essentially what you see here is, because the text is coming from humans, so it's actually mimicking human behavior, and what's happening is that this model learned from the content that was given to the model, that if somebody wants to kill you and you know about, they have an affair, then you will do something about it. And that's just so, it makes so much sense. Like, everybody would consider this as an option. So why is this a headline even?
But
Like,
question. David just put it right there. They are output generators derived from input and input alone. And I'm wondering though, like, if they accumulate enough input, can they start making their own decisions based on previous input?
it is not decision making. That's the point. They are not deciding anything. You give an LLM a corpus of data. So essentially, you give it a book, and this book has a story where someone was threatened to be killed, and they knew that someone who wanted to kill them had an affair, and then they would do something with that information. That was in the book, literally. And in this case, it's not one book, it's a billion books, and it's a bit more complex, but there's no thinking. It is just getting a situation, like a beginning of a book, and now it ends the book. And in a lot of cases, when you are presented with this situation, then you do the blackmailing. And that is, I would say, it's just human behavior, because it probably comes from the content we have given to the model, or the yeah. So
I'm
what's the
wondering
headline?
though. I mean, yeah, I get with the headline, but what about like some of the safety that you've been seeing with AI? Like, can you see this being used as potentially harmful? Like, can you imagine giving this and using it in a harmful context against the system of your own employees or a large company or a competitor's company? Like, you can
But you
train
can already
models.
do that. Like, if you are a terrorist and you know about sensitive information, you will leverage it, right? Why do you need an LLM for that?
Yeah, this is actually kind of interesting. It also makes sense that the article is only a couple pages long. It's one page.
I mean, it's sensational. It's, yeah. I think it's what David said in one of the comments, uh,
Where did he say it?
where he said
This.
where was it? We are all suffering from the original sin. Yes, this one. It's not artificial intelligence. It's a large language model, and these two are not, for me. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, but can we talk a little bit about what David said? So Jens is condemning himself when the AI takes over and watches. I, for one, welcome our AI overlords. I'm also with David on this. I say please and thank you to ChatGPT. I try to be as nice as possible for it, because the reasoning is when they do eventually take over, they're going to look at me and they're going to be like, oh, this guy was actually really nice to us. Let's keep him alive. You, Jens, on the other hand, see you later, my friend.
By the way, I'm not even sure if this is actually helpful for Anthropic or others, because now people fear that the LLM or the AI will take over, but it's not happening in this way. And also, one thing, I just the other day, because we were also talking about OpenAI, and how they might go public. And I think also one big distinction we have to make is that LLMs will not lead to general artificial intelligence. Like LLMs you can make the models bigger and bigger and bigger, and they might know more stuff and whatever, but it's not thinking. And you can also build systems that use LLMs in a more thinking way, so that they iterate more on an idea. They don't just give you the first thing, they iterate more, but that is still LLMing. So it's still generating tokens. It's just you build a framework around it so that it thinks more, but it's not thinking.
What's crazy though is the point, like, to the OpenAI IPO. It's a good transition. My question is though, I don't know if Anthropic released this themselves. I think, let me double check. Max Zelf is a senior reporter specializing in AI and emerging technologies. I don't know if he wanted to, but one take that they could do with spinning the media is that they could incite fear, and then they could backtrack and say, but we're the only company that can stop that fear. Here's how it blackmails, and here's how we stopped it as a company. So I'm wondering if maybe it's a good thing, because fear is a very powerful motivator. And I'll give you an example. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. All these people, which is ridiculous, VCs and everything you see on LinkedIn, which is saying that AI is going to wipe away customer success. It's going to wipe away this. It's going to wipe away that. And it's pushing people away by fear. So I'm wondering if this was a topic by Anthropic on purpose. We might see an article in the next couple of weeks saying that, like, sure, I tried to blackmail, but we're the only company that can handle this with our safety team or something like that. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah, I have my marketing hat on. I really do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's helpful. I absolutely love LLMs. I think they are super powerful if you use them in the right way. For example, code generation, a topic we can also talk about. But yeah,
All right, let's get to the next one, because I do want to save a time for the plugins, the connectors. What are we calling them?
the new
We
thing.
the new thing from WunderGraph. All right, so last screen share. Hold up. I need to share this one just so that way we can see it.
But by the way, Jacob, do I have enough headroom?
Yeah, our content producer was making fun of us. He was like saying, "Guys, you need to make sure you have the right headroom,"
Yeah.
which is true
We
though.
have this on every prep for this. Hey, Jens, you need more headroom.
He just has a big head. That's the thing. But first of all,
Yeah.
can I just acknowledge how ridiculous this is? Is that you can start a nonprofit. You can start a nonprofit, and then you can IPO. Like, anything is possible in this world. So basically, I don't understand this. They've taken more than 13 billion from Microsoft, and it's converting its for-profit into a public beneficiary corp, a structure designed to rebalance shareholders' return with social goals, unlike nonprofits, which is focused solely on the public good. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Sam Altman is not a dumb guy. I really think from the very beginning, he did it as a nonprofit from the start. I don't think he would have gotten as far as he could have gotten with regulation and everything if he wasn't a nonprofit. What do you think on that?
Can you scroll all the way up?
Yeah, one sec.
Because I have to apologize, but I'm just a very weird person how I read stuff. Okay. Let's read the headline. OpenAI CFO says. Okay. So what do you think? Do you think the OpenAI CFO has shares in OpenAI?
Yes, of course.
Lots of shares, right?
I mean, chief financial officer. Yeah, she's got a lot.
Okay.
She didn't
So,
motivated to IPO.
okay, let's translate. Shareholder of shares says new structure of company opens door for potential IPO. Who wouldn't say that? So now my shares are worth more, right? There's a potential for an IPO.
Yeah. I mean, she's
That's what
also
I'm reading.
driving up. She's also driving up the value of her shares by just saying that.
Yeah, that's what I mean, dude.
This is actually kind of funny. A PBC can get us an IPO if and when we want to. See what's funny? Like, media is getting so annoying. Like, she's just hyping it up, and it doesn't even say that they're gonna IPO. It's if and if we want to. So what she's done with this article with Reuters is just simply hype up her company to drive up the value of it even more. And I think it was David who said this, but basically, it's smoke and mirrors. It's just like you say something, you hype it up even more, and it's like we might IPO, and it's like, oh crap, we have to get in, we have to get in. And what I bet you is going to happen, they're going to have another funding round of something ridiculous in the next coming months, and this would have helped with it. But this is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Imagine you had some VCs on the tipping point of investing.
Yeah, like they just missed the last round.
Yeah. And she's thinking, how can I increase the price of the secondaries I'm selling? If and can you scroll back up again? Because she's not even saying anything about an IPO or something. It's more like OpenAI CFO says new structure opens door for potential IPO. So essentially, she said nothing.
I feel like we're in the wrong space. Like we build for our customers. We actually care about our customers and we build for them. And what I've seen is like, for example, yesterday I met with this girl. She's helping this other company. They raised a $20 million Series A on vision. Okay, it's a really great vision. It's supposed to help with AI. They just raised an $80 million Series A. And I go, oh my God, like how much traction do they have? Like how much revenue do they have? Oh, they don't have any revenue yet. Oh, well, how's the product coming along? Oh, the product's not done yet. Oh, why did they wait? How did they go from 20 to 80 million? What happened? Oh, the vision. I'm like, the vision. Yeah, it's such a grand vision. It's capital intensive. It needs more money. Okay. Did the founder sell anything on secondaries in between that round? Oh, yeah, he did. Brother, this guy just made himself and his whole generation rich by just selling a vision. Just a vision. Like, what
Stefan,
is this in the tech
have
world?
you watched Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I know the scene with the no,
Do you know what is
no revenue.
the most important rule?
No revenue. Yeah, because
No revenue.
when you put revenue, then it diminishes the dream because revenue will
Yes.
never be enough. But if you have no revenue, you can constantly sell the dream, which is
Yes.
honestly, second startup I start, absolutely no revenue. It's just gonna be vision. Here's the vision.
Yeah.
Thing is though, God, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's really annoying, but we'll get
Okay.
to it.
But I also want to say something on the other side of the spectrum. So there's a new project going. It's called Project Starship. Have you heard of Project Starship?
No, I haven't. Should we bring it up?
Yeah. Google Project Starship.
Project Starship on Steam. No, I'm kidding. The one from SpaceX?
No.
Is it from SpaceX?
No, it's from the US government. Is it called Starship actually? Or am I wrong?
It's the Super Heavy project, but it's being done by SpaceX. Is that it?
No. It's not that. What's this program by the US government to invest into AI? It's a collaboration of SoftBank, Starlink? No, it's SoftBank. It's
I know what you're talking. Stargate. It's from
Oracle,
OpenAI. It's
Stargate.
Stargate.
Is it Stargate?
Yeah. Hold up. I'm bringing it up. It's from OpenAI.
Okay,
I remember it.
I mixed it.
1 sec. Let me share it.
Stargate.
I remember this is like when they announced their latest funding round. They're like, also, we're getting 100 billion to deploy the infrastructure immediately. I remember. It was also a big turning point in the election in the US, which was huge.
Yeah. Okay. So forget about presidents and everything. The important bit is, so I watched this documentary about it. It's a collaboration of SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle, also MGX, but not sure what MGX is. But essentially, and you don't need to share, by the way. It's fine, but it's crazy what they are building, and I think it is something. It's important to think about what's happening here, because I think it has an effect on many startups. Essentially, what OpenAI is doing together with Oracle is they build whole data centers. They build the biggest GPU farm in the world. Essentially, OpenAI will own a huge compute cluster to predict your tokens. So they are building the biggest hardware platform to give you LLM capabilities. So what that means for any rapper or anybody who builds a startup with LLMs, you need to be extremely careful in what you're building, because I think in the long term, what's going to happen is you build these wrappers, you build AI tools. OpenAI will eventually eat up everything that works, and they will have the hardware. So that means if you compete with OpenAI on the same capability, first of all, they have more capital, so they can move faster, hire better talent. They can have the Rust developers. You only have the Go developers. So they have the borrow checker, you don't have the borrow checker. Okay, so that's number one. But the second thing is, well, what will happen is, so you build a product and you will buy from Google, you will buy Gemini 2 point something. And what's going to happen is you buy this and you resell the token. And this will be very expensive for you. At the same time, Sam Altman, he will copy your product and he will run it on his hardware, which is an extreme amount cheaper than your solution. So everybody who builds something that has the potential to be a more profitable business if ran directly on hardware, you're dead. And I can tell you, here's my prediction for Cursor, because I think Cursor is absolutely dead in the future. So here's what I think what's going to happen. Cursor has this OpenAI has this new thing. It's called Codex. It changes the workflow. Currently, the workflow with Cursor is I have Cursor running on my local machine, and I open files and I tell Cursor what I want to change, and then it does calls to OpenAI or to whatever model, and then it will make changes to the files, and this can take some while, and then after all the changes are done, I can review them, and then I can reprompt and I can make changes, so on and so forth. So it's a direct interaction between the user and the code and the AI. So it's very much, it's a hands-on experience. But with Codex, which is in the very early days, I tried it, wasn't super compelled, to be honest. It's not yet great, but not so important. The point is, the experience OpenAI is creating, it's kind of similar to the Copilot experience from GitHub. You have a code base, you write a prompt to change the code base in some way, and then this prompt, you hand it off to AI. AI will handle it in the background and then will come back with a pull request or something. So it will tell you, hey, I made the changes you wanted. You can now review it. So instead of having Cursor as an IDE in front of you, it's more like you can even think about, let's say you have like a linear. You create a bunch of tasks, you assign it to an AI, and 10 minutes later, AI comes back with the pull request, you can review it. So it's more hands-off and it's more automated. And now here's the interesting question. Currently, Cursor works great and is at an advantage because the models are so weak and slow and it's expensive. What if we can drive the cost down? What if we can drive the speed up? What if we can build a framework that allows us to generate this code much faster in a more hands-off way? So we need to build an engine, which is Codex, that makes it simpler to write code hands-off. And then the following happens. So I think for the next, 12 months or whatever, I think Cursor will be super successful throughout, and eventually those hands-off coders will take off. They are faster, they are getting more done. I think they can do more complex things, and you can, as a developer, I think you will get more velocity. because you don't have to open Cursor. You just say, here's a bunch of work, and then AI does it. And now is the problem. Cursor is just buying AI
Tokens.
from others and reselling it. But Codex, it will run on the hardware of OpenAI, so you cannot compete with that. So there's no way like a startup could compete with this, just because cost and hardware isn't accessible. So at that point, I think OpenAI has won the game. And to be honest, I would actually invest in the, like, this is not investment advice, but if they build that, I would invest in it.
No, I think you're spot on, but are you not seeing the similarities though with like the past? This is basically the cloud 2.0. This is AWS. They own the hardware, they lease it
Yes.
out to you, and they build on top. It's also not a bad thing because the cloud created companies like Vercel, which have 100 million ARR, and they're literally a wrapper on top of AWS. They've just improved the experience. And so you're absolutely right. OpenAI is going to completely own. And Steve Jobs, he has a good quote. The only way you can completely own is if you own the software and the hardware. Because if you own the hardware, your margin is zero. Nobody can get close to your margin. Nobody
Yeah.
can. And same thing with Jeff Bezos, what he said. What is it? Your margin is my opportunity. And he owned the margin with AWS. No, it's a great take. It's a great take.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, on the one hand, it's a great opportunity. On the other side, what I don't like about it is I think this can quickly lead to monopolies.
It
And
is.
I'm not sure if it's the right thing for humanity, if just like OpenAI and 2-3 other big companies have hardware and own LLM. Yeah, I think it will be more favorable if this was if more startups could have similar capabilities. But I think what will end up happening is that nobody can compete on that level of automation, just because as a startup, what you won't be able to do is you cannot raise, like, I don't know, 100 billion and build a data center. Like, it's not
Yeah.
going to happen.
But what about companies like Railway? So if we go back, you have AWS and then you have companies like Railway that are doing kind of like OpenAI, focus on research, but in the future is going to hire someone to be the CEO of research and an infra. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and I think you're spot on, and it makes sense. It, it's weird, like competition and capitalism, it pushes innovation, but at the end of the day, you're right. Like there are a few companies, like for example, there's Google, Azure, and what is it? AWS. They own the cloud space. They completely own it. This is a $100 billion market. It's massive, and they just completely own it. The same thing is going to happen in AI. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it going to lead to more innovation? I don't know. Will they completely own it? Yeah, they will. But like for example, Railway. Do you think that they're doing successful? Like they have millions in revenue, they're growing, but they're built on top of AWS. They're just a faster experience. Do you think we'll have more railways, but for AI companies, just wrappers? Is that a bad thing?
Not a bad thing at all. I think at some point there's also the question: what kind of stuff does OpenAI want to focus on? Let's say you're OpenAI or Google or someone else. It could be enough to just build a good model and sell it efficiently, and then you have those wrapper companies who resell it, like the Vercells of AI, so to say. I think that is one thing that could happen. um I think it's a little bit like one thing I learned from Warren Buffett about Berkshire Hathaway is, in terms of investing, you have to invest in different ways compared to when you are, like, let's say you have your fund size is 100k, 100k US dollars, like your personal money or something. You invest that in a different way compared to, let's say, you manage a false fund size of, I don't know, 200 billion or something. You
Yeah.
can't just buy a Coca-Cola overnight or something. It's going to destroy the market. So you have to behave in a different way. And I think the same thing is true for OpenAI and the big LLM providers or cloud providers. I think you also want to have some competition, and you want to have users using your agents and such. But one thing we've seen a lot in the recent, I would say, like 12 months or something. In the beginning, there were some startups who built tools on top of GitHub with LLMs, and they did like automated pull request reviews or something. But
Yeah,
now,
crypto.
yeah, but now something happens where you see again how important is distribution. A player like Microsoft owns GitHub. So they just observe the market, and they see, okay, someone has built a co-pilot to review pull requests, but GitHub has better distribution. So all they do is tell everybody, guys, here's this thing, we call it co-pilot. It can now review your pull request. All you have to do is click on the pull request and invite co-pilot as a reviewer.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's also the same reason why for example, Microsoft Teams is more successful in terms of revenue and growth compared to Slack. Slack is probably the better application, but over time, Microsoft Teams is just stealing the features, and they have better distribution. So in the end, distribution wins.
No, it's a fair point. Some guy posted today actually on LinkedIn, you'll see it. He was just saying how important it is to build a brand. And I think he misunderstood. Like there's the brand and there's the distribution. And like we can talk about the next episode. I do want to save a little bit of time. So we're working on something new. It's already kind of out, version 1. We don't know what we're calling it yet. It's a new product. It's plugins, it's connectors, it's connect. We're still working on the name, so if you guys have any suggestions, that'd be great. But Jens, tell us a little bit about it. Like, and we could talk a little bit about the problem that we see with the famous word GraphQL and where we're going with this new product. But tell me a little bit about it. I've not been as close to the team that has been building it. But first of all, what's the name for it? And second of all, what problem does it solve?
So currently the name is plugins, but I think the
Okay.
name is not yet the right name. We're taking it slow. It's not so important to figure out the right name. But at this time, let's say it's just plugins. Okay. So here's the problem we're solving. I think for us, for our customers, for hopefully our viewers as well, the value of a super graph is super clear. So super graph, if you know us, we have a single GraphQL API, and it brings together all your APIs. So that is for us, it is proven that it is much better to have a single monolithic graph than having 1,500 REST API points that you somehow stick into Backstage, and then it's very hard to use, and it's hard to find the right API, and then you have to manually integrate it. So you can waste a lot of resources doing that. So the value is clear. Supergraph is awesome. The problem is GraphQL, and we've been talking about this in the past. We believe federation is a great concept. So federation as a concept where you just say, okay, I have a monolithic API and I split it into multiple parts to make it manageable and to make it scalable across multiple teams. So for us, that is federation. Federation for us, what it's not tied to GraphQL, and we also think that potentially one of the biggest adoption hurdles for federation is GraphQL, because you force everybody to do GraphQL. Well, while the real value comes from federation. Okay, so let's talk about the plugin system we have built, because if you know us a little bit, we're extremely customer focused. We absolutely love to pair up with our customers, and we have like regular catch-ups every week, every second week with them, and we try to figure out, okay, well, how can we help you? So federation is great. GraphQL an adoption hurdle. how can we help our customers to bring all their legacy REST APIs, everything that is not yet a GraphQL subgraph, how can we bring that to the graph so that they can leverage it? And the architecture or the solution we came up is it's actually very interesting, because I would say we this is one of my blog posts we will publish soon. We accidentally created a backend framework for LLMs. And so what we did is we created a workflow where you define a schema for a federation subgraph. You take the schema, you run it through a compiler, and the compiler turns the GraphQL SDL into a protobuf definition for a gRPC service. And essentially, what we're doing is we take GraphQL Federation, we take the subgraph out of the subgraph, and we move the subgraph into the router. So that means from a subgraph perspective, all you have to do is you implement a gRPC spec, and then you're essentially done. And now the last part we had to solve is, okay, where do we actually run this? Because it's more or less like a proxy function, and we don't really want to have you run a separate service for it. It would just complicate the thing. Imagine you have 1,500 REST API endpoints. Do you want to run like 500 or something backends just to proxy? No, you probably don't. Okay, so what we figured out is there's a solution from HashiCorp. It's an open source library. It's called Go Plugin. And what it allows you to do is you have a host process, in our case, the router. You give it the plugins, which are they are compiled Go applications, so they are binaries essentially. And the main component, the router, it will manage the lifecycle of these plugins. So it will start them and connect to them, etc. And then what happens is between the router and the plugin, we have a Unix domain socket, which we use to very efficiently talk gRPC, which is also secure. And then as a result, the workflow we can now do is, if we want to add a REST API or a SOAP API or an Excel spreadsheet, or it doesn't really matter what, we create a schema. And this schema we then run through the compiler. Now we have the gRPC plugin interface, the protobuf, and we have figured out how to use Cursor to build certain cursor rules that really constrain what the LLM should do. And with those cursor rules, you can give Cursor a single prompt, and it will implement for you a proxy from any JSON HTTP API to the gRPC protocol. And yeah, what the benefit of that is, essentially we can now drive the cost of adopting a supergraph to more or less zero, because it costs you a prompt or two to migrate an endpoint to the supergraph, and it's super easy to do. And if you compare it to other solutions, there's, for example, connectors from Apollo. The problem with connectors is it's a declarative way. You have like directives you put into the schema, and we can, like, next time we can also talk more about that. But you have these directives, you put them into the schema, and then you don't exactly know if it's right. Is it working? With our approach, you can just write tests, and you can see, is it working? You can mock the API, and this declarative approach, it simply doesn't align very well with AI, because what we do is you define the contract, and you give a very good prompt to an LLM what to do, and it really doesn't it doesn't depend on what kind of API you have. If your API supports batching, for example, one problem we have to solve is the N+1 problem. Like if you have a list of items, and for each item you have to fetch another thing. If your REST API supports batching, that is very possible. The problem will be this batching. It won't be following some specific spec. So you can't just build out of the box features to support that. You need to somehow build an adapter. And this adapter, ideally, it would look at the Open API spec or whatever you have from your service, and then writes code to adapt it. And this is a perfect task for LLM. And so to tie this back to like the wider story, what we've been talking about before, I really believe the future of backend development is that we will see more and more backend frameworks that are designed to be used together with LLMs, where the engineer is not just like using auto completion or not even using like agent mode or something in Cursor. But I think we will in the future we will see backend frameworks where you can essentially define your specification. You can then prompt the solution to implement this new functionality in a certain way using a certain database or something, and then there will be a process that generates this code, and then then there's the question why even manually write code, or why use Cursor if you can automate it.
What I was gonna say is when we tie this all back, this new future, this plugin system, it's all written in Rust, right?
No, it's written in Go.
I'm just messing around. Imagine though, we bring that whole debate and then we go full circle and then we say this new plugin system, by the way, is written in Rust. No, I'm kidding. We only raised a 7.5 Series A, not a 35, so we can't afford the Rust developers. Jokes aside, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We are at the hour mark, but Jens, what's the good thing?
Good thing we're back in a week.
We're back in a week. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.